The history of baseball in Fort Myers dates back to 1925 when the city hosted its first professional team for spring training. The attention the sport brought to the city had a major impact on its economy and still plays an important role today.
Early 1900s, Fort Myers was a remote outpost. You can't even imagine what Fort Myers was like back then. The Transcontinental Railroad was finished in 1869, which most people probably know, but rail service didn't come to Fort Myers till 1904, so this was way off the beaten track in the early 1900s. There was no road connecting Miami and Tampa to here until 1928 when the Tamiami Trail was open. The man behind bringing a major league team here in the early 20s was a local pharmacist named R.Q. Richards. Mr. Richards was also president of the Kiwanis Club. He was a civic booster. He wanted to put Fort Myers on the map. So he contacted, as I recall the story, all 16 major league teams asking if they wanted to move to Fort Myers for spring training. He didn't get anywhere for a year or two. Then finally he contacted Connie Mack, whose real name was Cornelius McGillicuddy. And Connie Mack had as long a history with spring training as possibly anybody who ever lived. Mr. Richards convinced Mr. Mack to bring the Philadelphia A's here in 1925. And the first day the A's showed up at the train station in Fort Myers, probably half a mile that away, the town band greeted the team. This was a big to-do. No spring training had ever been held in Fort Myers before. And the local paper, the Fort Myers Press, bannered it across the front page, Philadelphia A's in town. And one of the things they pointed out was there were 5 sports writers on the train. And now people say, who cares about 5 sports writers? But that was the whole premise behind Mr. Richards getting a team here, because he knew those 5 sports writers would be writing stories that would go in big city papers up north where it was cold, where there was sleet and snow, and they would write about Fort Myers, how warm it was, and the palm trees and the sun and the blooming flowers in the middle of winter. So that was the impetus or the catalyst for Mr. Richards to seek a team. That still drives spring training here now in Fort Myers and everywhere else. I'm not really sure what the residents thought in 1925. I think most of them thought it was kind of cool because this is so long ago. There's no TV, there's no radio, not even a radio station in Fort Myers in 1925. So the idea of having famous ball players from Philadelphia or New York or St. Louis, wherever, come in here and play games had to be very exciting. They were celebrities. After Thomas Edison, they were the most famous people in town. And Thomas Edison used to go to Terry Park. There are photos of Thomas Edison at Terry Park with baseball legends like Ty Cobb and Connie Mack. And Mr. Edison also invited the team over to his home. There's a photo, maybe somebody will dig it up, with the entire team on Mr. Edison's porch. And they're all wearing suits and ties, and they had dinner there. And one of the stories I heard about that is Mr. Edison gave every player a cigar, but nobody wanted to smoke the cigars because they wanted to keep it as a souvenir. And Mr. Edison noticed that. They said they wanted to keep it as a souvenir, so he gave everybody an extra cigar, so they have a cigar to smoke and one to keep as a souvenir. And at that time, Mr. Edison had to be one of the most famous people in the world, so his presence at a spring training game at Terry Park was a huge deal. First spring training facility here in town was Terry Park. Terry Park was a community park. It was built in 1906. So when the city fathers convinced Philadelphia A's to come here for spring training in 1925, they built a grandstand and a couple ball fields out at Terry Park. And that was the home of the Philadelphia A's from 1925 to 1936. Then they left, and there was no spring training here again until 1940. Then World War II came along. There was no spring training anywhere in Florida during World War II. So 1942 through 45, I believe it was, nobody had spring training in Florida because of World War II travel restrictions. So teams had spring training in places like Asbury Park or near West Point, New York, or Tufts University. They went to a local gym, played catch in the gym, and got ready again. But then spring training returned to Florida in 1946, but not to Fort Myers again until 1955. The stadium we're sitting in, City of Palms Park, was built and it was opened in 1993 for spring training. It was built specifically for the Boston Red Sox. It was built to lure them out of Chain of Lakes Park, their previous home, in Winter Haven, which is in Central Florida. So this was built, I think the total cost of the project was about $24 million. There's this stadium, seats about 8,000, this field, and back there's a practice field. A few years ago, the Boston Red Sox were being courted by Sarasota, which is about 75, 80 miles to our north. And the Red Sox had trained there previously back in the 30s and 40s, so it would have been a renewal of an old friendship. But the city and county leaders here didn't want to lose the Red Sox because the Red Sox have a significant economic impact. We're talking $20-some million a year. So the county commission voted to build a new facility to replace this place here, replace the City of Palms Park. And the price tag came to be about $80 million. So we went from $80,000 in 1955 for Terry Park to $80 million a couple years ago for JetBlue, which is a few miles away from here. A lot of people were very upset. They were complaining that their tax dollars were going to build a baseball stadium. But the people who supported the project pointed out that the money for the project didn't come from ad valorem or property taxes. It came from the bed tax on the hotel. So if you come here to see a spring training game and you check into the Holiday Inn or the Days Inn, wherever, there's a 4 or 5% tax on your hotel bill. The money to build JetBlue Park and to renovate the Twins Stadium, Hammond Stadium, comes from that property tax money. It also came, the Twins renovations also came from a state grant. The state was losing teams to Arizona a few years ago, so the state of Florida devised a grant program that allocated $15 million to various communities to help keep teams here after the state of Florida lost 5 teams to Arizona in recent years. So I believe $15 million of the Hammond Stadium $48 million price tag came from that state grant. The cost of this stadium is still being borne by the city of Fort Myers and the city of Fort Myers taxpayers. I don't know how much is left on the bond. I'm going to guess, I could be off a little bit, $14-15 million is still owed on this stadium. A lot of people complain in the city that they were too generous in their dealings with the Red Sox, that the Red Sox took the city for a ride to have this stadium built. And the city, I don't know how long it's going to take. It's going to take quite a few years to pay off the bond on the City of Palms Park here in Fort Myers. The local stadiums are used year-round. The Hammond Stadium, where the Twins have spring training, is also home of the Fort Myers Miracle. That's the Twins affiliate in the Class A Florida State League. The Miracle plays 70 home games a year. Their season starts early April, goes to early September, so that gets a lot of use. And all the facilities are used extensively for amateur baseball. Fort Myers, without spring training, it would still be a vibrant community. I don't think if the teams somehow left tomorrow, all of a sudden the economy would collapse. It would be missed, but you know, we've got a vibrant place here. You got the beaches a few miles away. I don't know, in the area, 100 golf courses. There's universities here. There's plenty of things to keep the economy humming. I mean, this is icing on the cake, I think. It not only infuses money into the economy, but it adds excitement to the town. Just, like I say, go out to the ballpark, a lot of the fans are tourists, but a lot of folks I see at the ballpark are people I know around town. They enjoy the atmosphere of being at the ballpark, seeing Major League ball players, seeing the current stars, seeing up-and-coming stars. So there's the economics, and there's just the intangible buzz and excitement of having Major League Baseball in town for a few weeks.